Good evening and welcome to the Tibet Center here at 151 West 30th Street, 3rd floor. We will begin by reciting the prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West, which you will find if you're on the Tibet Center website, scrolling down to the FAQ section. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems, and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddha's teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living there, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially to those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness. May they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the Dharmas called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas of their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus, all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed. Tadyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisvaha. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that Samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you are taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. Now we generate bodhicitta. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, so we'll do one rosary of Om Mani Padme Hum. And you can think, as you were reciting, of you develop the wish to remove the suffering of others. You can also think of the meaning of Om Mani Padme Hum. You have Om, which is composed of A, U, Ma, which represent the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. Mani, which represents the method aspect of our practice. Padme, which is the wisdom aspect of our practice, and Hum, which represents these two aspects coming together. And it is these two aspects coming together, the method aspect of our practice and the wisdom aspect of our practice, when they come together, that's what transforms our body, speech, and mind into enlightened body, speech, and mind. So if we can think about these things, the recitation of Om Mani Padme Hum may have some value, some quality, some benefit, but the thought that you give to the meaning, the thought that you give to developing the wish to remove the suffering of others is far more important than the mere recitation. The recitation is to remind us, to keep us on track, but thinking about these other things is really the essence. So we'll do Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. So, we have been discussing His Holiness's book, Beyond Religion, Ethics for a Whole World, where His Holiness introduces practices, ways of thinking that are not, they may derive from Buddhism or Buddhist practices, but they are free of Buddhism. They are what he calls secular. So we have reached page 129, 130. So, in this section, what we're really dealing with is the process by which, she knows it by heart, the process by which we confront our afflictive emotions, things like anger and attachment and pride and jealousy, these emotions that take us over, these emotions that are our greatest enemies. It is these thoughts, these emotions that cause us unhappiness, that cause us all the difficulties that we have in life. And so the practice that we have to engage in is conquering them, is dealing with them. And His Holiness refers to this as taking a stance. If we look on page 124, in order to go about dealing with these destructive emotions, it is first of all necessary to adopt a general attitude or stance towards them, a stance of opposition. So we can talk about the negative aspects of attachment or aversion. We can talk about the way in which anger makes us unhappy, makes the people around us unhappy. But we actually have to determine that we are going to deal with these emotions. That's what taking a stance is. But the trouble is that these emotions have an ability to take us over. We all know from great experience that there are times when people provoke us and we get angry, and we don't want to get angry. We become angry with ourselves for having gotten angry. So what we have to learn how to do is catch ourselves before. The first thing we have to do is develop the wish to catch ourselves before we get angry. Develop the determination to catch ourselves. Now, as I say this, as I said at the beginning, this book is on secular ethics. If anyone who has studied Buddhism, these are practices that are taught in Buddhism. If you've studied Lamrim, when you're studying the perfection of patience, for example, you deal with, you become familiar with these subjects. But here, if we really analyze, these techniques are not necessarily Buddhist. They are commonsensical, they are practical, they are things that we can do to make ourselves happy and to diminish the things that provoke us and make us unhappy. So the first thing we have to do is to decide that we wish to do that. We wish to work on ourselves. So that's what taking a stance is. And it's very important. If you sit and you think about how if we don't do anything about it, we will remain the victims of these afflictive emotions, And we will, it's sort of like being in the ocean, bobbing up and down in the ocean. We will have no control over ourselves. If we actually work at developing some kind of ability to control, ability to diminish the tendency to react, we will be happier and the people around us will be happier. And so, considering, sitting and thinking about the fact that if we don't do anything about it, we will be miserable, we will make the people around us miserable. Thinking about how much happier we will be and our environment will be if we develop control. That thought, that we call it a type of analytical meditation, that in itself develops the strength of that stance that we have to take. So that's what we've been discussing. And so on 129 we talk about the emotional awareness. So once we've taken this stance, we have to actually pay attention and become familiar with the way in which these emotions seem to take us over. We get angry. When something provokes us, at the time that we are provoked, it's too late. The reaction is too fast for us to be able to catch ourselves. We have to really work on ourselves before we are provoked. We have to sit and familiarize ourselves with the process by which we react when we're provoked. So it's work. We have to decide that we are going to work on ourselves. We have to sit and we have to think about the process when I'm walking along this. Well, living in India, I found that I had many opportunities to develop patience. Here in America is very good about when you go to the bank, you stand in line. Whatever it is, you stand in line, and people respect the line. And we have methods. I must say that in the years that I was away, I would come back to America, and I would go to a place like Whole Foods, and they would have different lines, and there'd be numbers. Then you said, number this and that. It was so wonderfully arranged, and through this process, we really moved along rather quickly. They have, as you wait in line, you have little candies that you can pick up, and it's really aimed towards making this process pleasant. In India, it's everyone fighting to, and it's a wonderful practice in patience if you can do it. The trouble is that those people, I'm a monk. I not only am I meant to have a little bit of self-control, but I'm meant to serve as an example to others of what patience is. And yet, if I'm waiting in line and someone cuts in front of me, I'm overwhelmed with anger, frustration. I'll say, you, and it just takes me over. It's
happened to me so many times. The New Yorker in me wanted to really fight back, but then I thought, I don't want to spend any evenings in jail in India.
So Darren has just revealed the fact that he has the self-control that enabled him to refrain from behaving the way I did. Sorry?
They cut everywhere. It's really weird.
But if you don't get rid of them, as you were saying, you do, you never get to buy your train ticket. You'd be in the line, you know, you could spend a long time there.
So it's all a question of attitude. You can turn, or you can say,
Well, you're supposed
"Sir."
to be. Well, you're not supposed to be nice, though.
No, you're supposed to be nice. That's what we're talking about. So, but now, the trick, if there is a trick, is to try to make it a game and try to say, okay, now I'm going to the bank, I know they're going to be cutting in front of me, I'm going to be frustrated, and I don't have anywhere to go. It's not as if I'm going to be late for something. I have time. I'm going to watch these people behave so badly. And so you go into the bank with a certain smile on your face and say, these people are going to step on my toes, they're going to push me, still, boom, I suddenly, and so, but the whole thought process that prepares us is helpful. In other words, to say to ourselves, okay, when I find myself cut off in line, I react this way. Now let me see what it is and why it is that I feel a little bit of it. It makes no difference. 5 minutes, 3 minutes. What is it? I waste so much time in a day, and here I am fighting for being in front of. So, such thoughts are helpful. Taiwan taught me a lot. Because in India, when you go to the bank, you have to hold that person's attention. Because you have someone who's talking here, and you have someone who's talking here, and you have someone who comes in the back door and wants something, and so you have to just sort of like try to hypnotize that person into finishing your job. And because if he or she loses their attention, you've lost. And so you have to hold. I remember going in Taiwan, going to the bank, and the woman was in one of those little sort of cages, and she started to deal with me, and then she stopped, and she started dealing with someone on the side there, and I could feel myself, but I didn't. I waited, and then she went to the side and did some talking over on this side to someone else who brought her a piece of paper. And then suddenly the piece of whatever it was that she was dealing with me came back from somewhere else, and she immediately dealt with me. She was able to triple task effectively, while in India it's single task. And she gracefully came back to me, and I told some Taiwanese friends of mine, I said, it's unbelievable. I mean, that would never happen in India. And they said to me, yes, we are taught to be able to do 2 or 3 things at the same time, to keep track of different processes. We are not taught. India, it's a question of making sure that one task is finished before the next task is started. And you want to make sure, because if they start the next task, they will never come around to them. So, but all of this, as I say, we are not working towards changing the banking system of India. We are not working towards changing anyone else but ourselves in this process. And the more we can, I say it this way because the more we can really have it be entertaining, have it be sort of fun, the more we can actually control ourselves and refrain from exploding. I think I've mentioned here that one of the things that used to really drive me crazy in India was the auto rickshaw, the tuk-tuk drivers. They always said that the meter was broken. And even if I knew that it wasn't, what can you say? They said, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. It'll be whatever, 100 rupees or in those early days it was less than that. And I think I mentioned that when I would be arriving in New Delhi, I would decide to devote 400 rupees or 500 rupees to being cheated. So I would say, okay, that money is already theirs. It's not mine. And so if they cheat me, it's their money. It doesn't matter. Still, they would get me. Still. But I say this because one of the things we have to do in order to develop a little bit of control over ourselves is analyze, is see the way we react, is see what it is in my gut that reacts to the fact that someone is cutting in front of me. And I should sit, not when in line at the bank, but sit in the morning and think of what it is that triggers and what the process of the emotional process that overwhelms me at that time. Because it is only by going through that analysis of ourselves that we develop eventually the ability to catch ourselves. And the ability to catch ourselves is really difficult. I don't want to pretend that this is an easy endeavor. It's really difficult to truly develop patience, to truly develop some kind of grace towards things happening around us in ways different from the way we might feel they should go, or the way we would like them to go, or what's fair, or any of these things. It's not an easy thing, and the more we can think about it, the more we develop what I keep referring to as that muscle of restraint. But we have to go beyond a muscle of restraint. We have to actually go to the point where we don't care. It doesn't matter to us. And in this regard, I'll tell you, there was a filmmaker, David Cherniak. I don't know if you know he worked for the Canadian Broadcasting Company, and he was making a television film on Western Buddhist teachers. And he went around in this big van, this thing that you live in, like a mobile, like a mobile home kind of thing. And he was going from place to place, and he had a little video camera like this on the front, and he was going around America and Canada and interviewing different teachers. And he came to visit me. And he said that he would be there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was living on 10th Street downtown, and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the doorbell rang, and I knew that he was traveling in this big mobile, whatever it's called, van. Sorry? RV. And I said, so where did you put your RV? He said, I parked right in front of your place. I said, but there's never any parking there. How did you do that? He said, I have good parking karma. And I said, how do you get good parking karma. He said, when I drive, I let other people go first. I go, wow, that's... And so these practices, if you like, do have good effects. I'm quite sure that you can't develop good parking or that grace, that letting other people go first, that's not developed easily, that's not developed quickly. And the result of that kind of behavior doesn't come to you quickly. These are habits that we have to work on over lifetimes, and they take a long time to develop. So these practices, we can joke about them, but these practices are very profound and have enormous ramifications, effects on us. And they really demand beginning by analyzing how we behave and developing what eventually should become an instinct of refraining from reacting in negative ways, selfish ways, angry ways, and eventually, as I said before, not reacting at all, just being easy about these things. So, emotional awareness. If we are to succeed in effectively tackling our destructive tendencies, first of all, we must observe and study them closely. For dealing with destructive propensities is not merely a matter of suppressing them. Our emotional and psychological habits can be very deep-seated and often have developed over the course of many years. I think we can say many lifetimes. This book is sort of catering to a non-religious, non-Buddhist audience. But I think that if we are honest about it, these tendencies to react have been with us over countless lifetimes. So if we do not address such emotions honestly, but bottle them up, this can potentially have very counterproductive effects. In fact, ignoring or suppressing emotions can actually aggravate them and make them intensify until they surge to the surface and, like a swollen river bursting its banks, find expression in unexpected negative thoughts and behavior. Instead of suppressing our destructive emotions, therefore, we must be open and honest with ourselves. So I'm not saying to go see a shrink or anything. I'm saying we have to do it ourselves. We must be open and honest with ourselves and bring mindful awareness to what triggers them, how they make us feel, and what kind of behavior they provoke. So these three aspects that are mentioned here, we must be open and honest and bring mindful awareness to what triggers, how they make us feel, and what kind of behavior they provoke. Really, writing that down and thinking about it and spending some time in the morning using this as a meditation is really, that's really real meditation. You know, if you sit and recite a mantra, and if you sit and watching your breath is good, but once you have calmed your mind down, this is the most beneficial thing that you can actually devote yourself to. This is, after having taken a stance, this is the way you actually act upon having taken that stance. This kind of introspective attentiveness to the way these emotions arise within us and manifest in our behavior is what I call emotional awareness. It is only by practicing such awareness, by facing these emotions directly and giving them careful scrutiny, that we can gradually bring them under control. Here again, it is worth considering our behavior in terms of 3 dimensions, at the level of body, speech, and most important, mind. If we can maintain introspective attentiveness to these 3 aspects of our experience and behavior, then we can, stage by stage, develop an emotional awareness which will be very helpful in restraining our negative impulses. So, does anyone have something to say, to share, to... Yeah, you have a good grasp on catching yourselves when...
I just remember, like Rinpoche and even Mr. Tong, like at a lot of time, like he would just ask us, like we were sitting together, or maybe chatting, or maybe looking at something, and then they would point to you and say, "What are you thinking?" You know, and then immediately, so bring us back in our mind, like, "Oh, what was I thinking?" You know, so they're actually helping us build this habit of like being aware of our mind. Yeah. And back then, we like, didn't really know that much, but now that you bring this up, yeah, they are really helping us to build this habit of like being aware of our thinking.
So Leon, what are you thinking?
Like even Mr. Tong, like sometimes he would say, like, as we come into the class, like different people come into the class, and of course we have different reaction or different feeling of each person differently, right? And then one time he was like, "What are you thinking?" Like this person came and said, "What are you thinking?" Maybe because maybe we like this person better, or maybe we don't, right? But it brings us into our own mind and catch our feeling or our, So I think it's a good awareness exercise that they're helping us to build.
So what are you thinking makes you develop that awareness of the here and now, and helps you prepare to not be provoked when someone provokes you. But we also have to think about the process by which we get provoked. Not when we're provoked, but when we're calm. Think about how, when in the markets down in the south of India, I would be talking to the person and I would say, I want 5 mangoes or whatever. And for some reason, the local women, when they're shopping, they would push me aside and buy their mangoes. And I'd say, "But do you not see me?" And I can say, thinking about that when you're not being pushed aside, so that when they push you aside, you can smile and say, "Oh, I hear you." Go right ahead. And of course, if we can think about karma, if we actually accept the idea of karma, which I think most of you are Buddhists here, the idea of karma is essential, because each of those situations where we are provoked are the result of our own actions in the past. And if we can sit and think about that, and if we can thereby feel, oh, whatever negative thing I did, my patience now is diffusing that negativity. If I get angry, I'm only making it all worse. It's only going to intensify that negative karma. And I'm going to be more overwhelmed the next time I'm provoked. So karma is a really good thing to consider. I don't know. How do you all feel about karma?
You definitely have to pay attention to your karma, whatever your actions are, because I really feel it right away if something's not right. And I just came back from this trip to Europe where I really enjoyed myself the whole time I was there. Usually I tend to get very anxious and project things. I realized that my tendency to project when I'm anxious doesn't help me.
What does project mean?
Paint a scenario of what might happen before it happens, and it's usually not accurate. And particularly, I didn't have that while I was there, but coming home, I found myself very nervous about coming through customs because I thought that I might just get pulled aside and arrested and disappeared because I'm Asian, even though I have an American passport. And my husband said, "Oh, you don't have to worry about that. We have global entry. You know, what's the problem?" And I thought, okay, you're just needlessly nervous. Just let things happen. And as we're waiting in line to get to where you have your picture taken, and it says, you know, accepts it, and then all of a sudden I hear this woman yelling, wait, that's not going to work for anyone. We have to interview you all individually. And I thought, and then this other man came out maybe 50 seconds later. He said, "These names are all cleared. I'm just going to read the names out and you can go." But I thought,
At JFK?
At JFK. And usually I really like coming home. I really feel like, oh, I've taken this wonderful trip. I come back home. It's going to feel safe and comfortable. I'll have heat and water and all this kind of stuff. And it was the first time I didn't feel that way. The good thing about having it totally upended was I could see when I was getting anxious that it wasn't helping at all. Because I was painting all these things that might happen. I even had my nephew's phone number because he works at Congress in case I needed something. Wow, that's so neurotic.
No, that was practical.
But it was a really interesting thing that how relieved I felt when we finally got our luggage. It was quite something to experience the turnaround, because usually I get nervous when I travel. But this time it's when I came home.
Sad.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested by the description of levels of body, speech, and most importantly, mind. I was wondering, I don't believe, the first way I interpreted that was to say, well, the body, without even thinking, somebody does, like, you know, and starts with that type of work. Get out of the way. And then speech is more controlled rather than doing something like that. You perhaps actually, ideally, you would try and argue with someone and convince them not to do what they were trying to do. But you might instead, you know, curse at them or say some, you know. And then, but sometimes, I think, when you reverse it, sometimes you expect that something would happen in your mind. And so you don't act physically, but sometimes you wish, gee, I wish I had said that. Because, you know, I had an answer. But then, so it's a kind of, I don't know. This question is, but maybe it was wrong, actually, for me to look at this in terms of that kind of backwards and forward, you know, starting with control and then, I don't know, but the awareness, I think when I look at this, is probably it's most important to be aware, not so much of what is going on around you, actually, what is going on inside of yourself. And so that, and that you really shouldn't anticipate what someone else is going to do, because in some cases you can anticipate it simply because you know the person, or you know the cultural environment or whatever. But I think it's most important to be aware of your own reactions, because that's really the only thing you can control.
Yes, but often your own reactions are in respect to someone else's behavior. And so developing an understanding of, anticipation of what that will be. I know that, again, poor India, I love India. But when you drive, people will, if you're on the main road and there are little roads coming in, anyone will permit themselves to come into the main road without looking, without stopping, without anything. So when you're driving along, you have to really pay attention. When I come back to America, I don't expect people to stop. And of course they do stop here, but and there's this technique, which is that they won't catch your eye. They will get onto the road without ever looking. So their belief is that as they are getting onto the main road, if they haven't looked at you, they have a right to go. So in respect to paying attention to what other people's behavior is, you have to be aware of how other people behave.
I think that's mostly in New Jersey.
That they stop or that they don't stop?
What you were explaining, I think that Jersey drivers have no handle on that.
That's good. It's very impressive, because Indian drivers do not. And the cows do not. And the other animals do not.
It's hard to say that this kind of, I guess you just wanted to kind of caution, but in the case of driving, is a very practical reason for not trying to engage people who do things like that.
Because they can.
If you have an accident, you get killed.
Well, we have road rage in this country. I don't know if they have that elsewhere, but we have it here.
I'm sure they have.
Yes, it's contagious. I think it. So again, as I say, really working at developing that patience beforehand, and as is said here, we're dealing with the body, the speech, and the mind, but it's really the mind. Karma, which specifically means action. There are the physical actions, the verbal actions, and the mental actions. The mental actions are really what it's all about. The motivation behind all non-mental actions. Motivation is what determines the quality of a physical or verbal action. So we really have to pay attention to our attitude, our motivation, the mental actions. So, could it be that doing purification practices actually bring latent negative karma to fruition, making it actually harder to have equanimity and patience? Gosh, could it be that doing purification practices actually brings latent negative karma to fruition, making it actually harder to have equanimity and patience. I'm not sure I totally understand what, if you are trying to purify, and if you're sitting and thinking of the negative things you've done, and if you work towards regretting that negative action and determining not to engage in it in the future, I think that will bring about equanimity. I think that will help develop patience. So I hope that what I've just said is helpful. The more we acknowledge our negative behavior, and the more we determine to refrain from it, and the more we determine to develop the self-control that enables us to not react, the more we are able to develop more equanimity and patience, I think. Does sincere regret, coupled with commitment to ethical living and mindfulness, mitigate the negative effects of past karma? Does sincere regret, coupled with a commitment to ethical living and mindfulness, mitigate the negative effects of past karma? Okay, so related to what I just said about the first, regret, an acknowledgement of the negative thing that we have done, regret for having done it. Let's say we get angry. I'm standing in the bank, some poor person who's used to cutting in line because that's what he always does, cuts in line, and I say, hey, I've lost it. I am seething with anger at this. If I sit and I've recognized that I've acted really appallingly, not only have I harmed my own composure, my own peace of mind, but I've really created a scene there. I've really done great, I've disrespected what I represent as a monk. I've done all sorts of terrible things, and to regret that, and to truly to acknowledge it, to regret it, and to truly determine that I'm going to work towards countering that tendency, definitely mitigates the negative effects of past karma. Yes, this is the true way by which we begin to diffuse past karma. The classic approach to purification involves the 4 antidotes, which does include regret. Yes. Anyone else have?
It seems to me that the question about purification there is asking that when you are purified, do you bring or open hardship upon yourself? Do you open up hardship because you wish to bring out and get rid of whatever is black and latent inside of you?
I don't think so. Do you?
Could be. I think it could be.
So if you have gotten angry and you recognize that you have gotten angry and you regret it and you say to yourself, I've got to study the way in which I'm provoked, and I have to really work at developing the ability to catch myself beforehand. Do you think that's
correct? No, that's exactly right. For something that has just happened. But when you were engaged in doing purification practices regularly, and you were thinking about past karma, trying to purify what you have accrued, then I certainly have a concern about that this will bring hardship upon myself. I mean, I have to, but you have to do it.
What type of emotion? Emotional?
Well, or else a car accident.
You are afraid that as a result of having acted in some non-virtuous way,
That I'm carrying around in the past. That from my past.
yeah,
That I will purify, and then something terrible will happen. And all that bad karma will be lost, although I may not be alive anymore.
okay. But instead of thinking of it that way, think to yourself that in the process of purifying, the negative results are going to have diminished tremendously.
Hope so. Yes, we hope so. We do. We hope so.
I think that we have to go on the basis that
It says so in here. Read that.
Why don't you read it to me? Yeah, but
I can't read it to you.
Oh, well, that's right. No, I like your way of thinking better than mine.
I was thinking if you're really purified and you're regretting, then you have to let go of what you have done wrong in order to make a resolution to not do it again. So I don't see how, if you're very sincere about admitting that you've done something wrong and you're not going to do it again, if you keep wanting to hold on to that thought, you'll never purify. Then you can't. It sounds like if you're doing a daily purification, but not really, it's not really purifying if you keep wanting to hang on to some aspect of the negativity.
Well, I think that's right, but, well, for example, sometimes people have, or a disaster, sometimes lamas tell people that when something has gone wrong, like cancer, that this is the best thing that ever could have happened to you. Because you're going to purify all this and get rid of it. So, I mean, if you purify, do you get closer to these disasters?
So in that situation,
Yes.
a practitioner can say to himself or herself, this cancer is definitely the result of my non-virtuous actions. My attitude, my viewing it that way in itself begins to diminish the anxiety that I feel. Developing that attitude towards it will definitely change the, as I say, the dynamic. But well, we've come to the end of today's class. Now, thinking about these things, we can, discuss them here, but sitting and thinking about them, really recognizing the process by which I react to such things, and thereby developing a little bit of control over my reaction to provocations, is really an important part of our practice as Buddhists, as human beings in life. And we will be happier as a result of it, and the people around us will be happier as a result of it. So to me, what we discussed today is of enormous importance. It's really the nitty-gritty essence of spiritual practice. Okay. So, do we have people we are being asked to pray for, Darren?
Yeah, America Sanchez,
America Sanchez.
Adele Marcos,
Sorry?
Adele Marcos,
Adal Marcos.
and that's it.
Juan Fong Huay Ya.
Yes. Susan Castoris, and Lori Frank, and Stephen Kling.
Say again.
Susan Castoris, Stephen Kling, and Lori Frank.
Okay, we shall read the Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Truth Rules. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagava, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sudatta, the Lord of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of Devas and Munis, the Buddha Bhagavata, the Tathagata is the Lord of God. He is not wasteful with his virtue. He is completely ornamented with patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with mighty ones. He blossoms with flowers and daydreams. His activity is timely and orderly. Seeing him is delight to somebody. He brings true joy to those who walk with faith. His knowledge can be overpowered. His strength can be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of self-justice. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who turn to the city of Brahma. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable eloquence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has seen him. His form is incomparable. He is not slain by one desire. He is not slain by one form. He is not affected by performance. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely liberated from sadness. He is not possessed with doubters. His appetite is under control. He is completely cognosed. He is completely liberated from scorn. He is liberated from craving. He is crossed over the river. He is perfected in all wisdom. He abides in the wisdom of the Bhagavad who rises past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the glory and all sentient beings, all beings in perfect virtues and greatness of the Bhagavad. The holy dharma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavad teaches the Dharma well. It brings completion. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one forward, seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating desire for the wise. The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavad is revealed properly in our life. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is dignity. It is trustworthy. It is an individuality. As one they enter completely, they enter satisfactorily, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously, they are worthy of liberation to join arms, they are worthy of receiving frustration, they are filled with glorious merit, they are completely capable of receiving objects, they are not objects of knowledge, they are very objects of complete knowledge. Protecting possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basic devotion is merit and virtue, and prosperity to the Tathagata, pure with free compassion, virtuous liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth, and prosperity to the Dharma teachings. Having been liberated and shown out for liberation, they are fully dedicated to this discipline. They are wholly filled with merit and possess virtue. And prosperity to the Sangha, and prosperity to the Buddha teacher, and prosperity to the Dharma protector, and prosperity to the Sangha community, and prosperity to the family and always to the Buddha's truth is our example, the Dharma's virtues are our example, the Sangha's virtues are our example. Having faith in these principles, therefore, the Buddha's example, determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings, who surpasses the illusion of I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respect the others as supreme from their destinies. In all actions I will learn to search and command, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, debating myself and others, I will firmly face and alert. I will learn to cherish opportunities and those that are transformed diseases and sufferings, as if I have found precious treasure before them. When others have jealousy treated badly, when the views slander and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one when I live with great hope, unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as excellent. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm suffering from others. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by stains of evil or concerns, and by understanding all the fundamental illusions, be released from our boundary of perfection. Now the prayer for a swift return of Dr. Rinpochethe. Exalted wisdom of all victories gathered in the realm. Soul refuge manifest in the form of one word sacrifice. Guru loves unto one word direction. Please bear his victory today. We beseech the great doctrine, accomplishing the long ago the last days of aspiration of purpose. Lord, beseech the creators of such teachings, spreading the whole movement. I will invite all these to be my guests and society. Yet together we will join activities with the foregone bounties that serve themselves. Is that worthy of supreme and happiness with others? Now possible for you to such existence to abandon commitments to bring all needs. We beseech you, your Son, and guide us with the return of the realm of God. Brought forth by the teaching of ourselves deeds. Having reached the final of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please demonstrate with the unrivaled supreme revelation, full hope of the Savior's teachings, and wish return as the Lord of us magnificent truth of three precious jewels, a high power, the ocean of love, please spontaneously fulfill our wish. So on Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock, we will have class in South Orange, New Jersey at 502 North Ridgewood Road.